In this lesson, we're going to learn all about parabolas, what they are, and the key features and the important things to know about parabolas. So with that comes a lot of vocabulary. So first, a quadratic function. We got to talk about what a quadratic is first. It's a function with the highest degree of 2. So anytime we're working with an x and we have an x squared, and that's our highest exponent, it's going to be a quadratic function, we call it. And quadratic functions make what we call parabolas. Okay, it's the shape of a quadratic function, and it makes this U shape here. So this would be our parabola. Okay, so then there's a couple important things to know about parabolas. First is the vertex. The vertex is always the highest or the lowest point of the function. So in this case, it would look something like this. We can see this is clearly the lowest point of the function. We wouldn't have a highest point because these arrows continue forever. So that would make this the vertex. We also have an axis of symmetry, and that's the line that cuts the graph into two equal halves, and it goes right through the vertex point. So I see if I make this little dotted line here like this, it's cutting that graph exactly in half, right? This is the exact same as this, just going in opposite directions. So it's like they're mirroring one another. So this line right here would be my axis of symmetry, okay? Y-intercepts are wherever we cross the y-axis. So right here would be my y-intercept. And x-intercepts is where we cross the x-axis. So this point and this point. Now these are our x-intercepts, but we could also call these roots, zeros, or solutions. Okay, so just keep that in mind going forward. So this is x-int or our root, solution, or zero. Okay. And then just to recap, the domain is all of our x values of the function, and it goes from left to right. And range is all the y values and goes from bottom to top. So we'll keep that in mind because that'll be important for our parabolas as well. So let's do an example. Let's find all the key attributes or key features of this parabola here. So first we can find the vertex pretty easy. Let's do that first. My vertex, remember, is always the highest or the lowest point. So in this case, I don't have a lowest point, I have a highest point right here. This point I went right to and up to, so that point is 2, 2, which means my vertex is 2, 2. My axis of symmetry, we're always going to write it as an equation, so it's going to be x equals, and now it's whatever the x value is of our vertex, because I see if I draw this line going right down my vertex here, splitting that graph in half, I'm going right through my vertex and right through the x value here, which in this case is 2, so my axis of symmetry is x equals 2, the line. Let's find our y-intercept. Y-intercept is where we cross the y-axis. So it would be right here at this point. That point, I went down 6, but I didn't go left or right any. So that would be 0, -6 is our y-intercept. Remember, solutions is another way to write our x-intercept, so where we're crossing the x-axis, which in this case is 1 and 3. So let's go ahead and write that as x equals 1 and 3 with some squiggly brackets like that. Now domain, we're going to write this in inequality and interval notation. Domain is always going from left to right. So I see I have these arrows here, which means I'm going to continue left forever, but I'm also going to continue right forever. So in my, let's call this inequality and interval notation. So my inequality notation would be all real numbers like this, and my interval notation would be -infinity to +infinity. Now range is always going to go in infinity for one direction, but we need to figure out if it's going down or if it's going up. In this case, my lowest point, I see I have these arrows here, which means we're going to continue down forever. So for my interval notation, that'd be -infinity. And I stop coming up right here, and that y value is 2. I have a closed circle there, so I'll put the bracket around it. Now for my range, I see I have one endpoint, and I'm continuing in one direction forever. So I'm going to compare y to 2, and all of my y values on this graph are less than 2. So I'm going to make 2 my biggest snack, and put the line underneath it since we have a closed circle there. So to summarize, key attributes, we want to know the vertex, we want to know the axis of symmetry, the x and y intercepts, and the domain and range. We find these just pretty simply by looking at the graph, and we can figure out all of these points as long as we know all of that vocabulary we talked at the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed this video lesson. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and I'll see you in the next video.